going to go down to Start, and I'm going to go to All Programs, and I'm going to go to Microsoft Office 2013, and I'm going to open Excel 2013. And this is, of course, a little bit different than Excel 2010 if you're used to Excel 2010. And basically things are just rearranged a little bit differently. If you're used to kind of the traditional way of things, you can always go to Open Other Workbooks, and then go up here to New, and then double click on Blank Workbook. And that's what we're basically needing to do, is create a blank workbook. And before I do anything here, I'm going to save this to my file management system. So I went up there to File, and I'm going to go to Save As. And I'm going to click on this Browse button because I want this to save to another location other than the default one. I want this to go to my E drive, to Projects, and I created this time management directory earlier. And I'm going to put this into my Docs. And I'm going to save this as, I'm going to save it as 2013-07-26. And you're probably wondering what all of this means. Well, the 2013 is the year, the 07 is the month, and the 26 is the particular day that I'm creating the spreadsheet. And then I'm going to put an underscore, and I'm going to put in V01, and that means version 01. And then another underscore, and then I'm going to call the file TIMEMGMT. That's Time Management Strategy. .xlsx. Now you're probably wondering, why am I saving it this way? And I'm saving it this way because this is kind of a work in progress file. And each time I make a change to the file, like a major change, I'm going to do a file to save as. And the reason why I'm going to do that, because oftentimes what people don't do is, or they don't realize, is that files can become corrupted as you work on them. And there are several reasons why a file can become corrupted. One such reason is in the process of saving, you can suffer a hardware failure, such as losing power in the process of a save operation. And if you lose power and you regain power and you try to access the Excel spreadsheet, it may not open because it's corrupted. But if you have a back-saved version, you can always open the back-saved version. But most people don't create back-saved versions because they don't version their files. So what I'm basically doing here is I'm versioning my file. So each time I make a change, I'll add a 2 or a 3 or a 4, and tomorrow if I work on this some more, I'll change this into a 7, and it'll be versioned back to 1, 2, 3, and it'll count up for that day. And then when I'm done with this file, and I know I don't need to make any more changes, I'll get rid of all of my versions to save disk space. But for now, since I know that this is a work in progress, I'm going to version this out. The other reason why that I may want to version this out is say that I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing. And this is going to be pretty common if you're a student. You may be working on a project and you're not really sure if what you're doing is the right path that you're taking or the right solution. So one thing that you can do is you can version it out. And say you get to like step 10 in the process and you realize, oh no, this is really not what I expected or not what I want to do. So I'm going to go back to my version 1 and start from scratch, or not completely start from scratch, but start back at that step and take a different path to solve my problem. And oftentimes, people don't do that. They try an experiment on the actual file without versioning it out, and they realize that that isn't what they need, and they have to start completely over, which wastes a lot of time. So versioning files can help you save time, and it can also help you troubleshoot or experiment with different ways of solving a problem. So for now I'm going to save it as this, into my Docs folder. I click Save. The second part of Task 2 asks us to create a typical week calendar. So it's going to be kind of generic. This calendar should be generic and show the following. It should show us Saturday through Sunday, and it should show us a full 24-hour day broken down by hour, and each hour broken down into 15-minute segments. So what I'll probably do is make this a very vertical calendar. You can go horizontal, of course, any direction that you wish to go. On mine, I'm just going to go vertical. So up here, I'm probably going to have some sort of title of what my calendar is. And then over here, I'm going to type in hours. And I'm going to have my hours listed here. So I'm going to have something like 12 A.M. And what I'll probably do is probably make all of this consistent. since I need to break it down into 15-minute segments. And you can expand and contract a column. You can also double click, and that will make sure that it doesn't run into any of your characters in the cell. What I'll probably do is create a space here and not use this. Maybe I'll just narrow this up a little bit. And then over here across this part, I'm going to have the kind of like the days of the week. So this is Sunday. This is Monday. This will be Tuesday. Wednesday. Thursday. Friday. And Saturday. So again, I'll just double space in between here, and I'll make them even spaces later, but for now this is more for just getting it set up basically. And one thing I would like to do is have like a line that comes across here that marks that 12 o'clock point. So I can do that by highlighting these cells here, right click here and go to Format Cells, and maybe I want this to be a little bit, this black line here, so it'll be the bottom part of the cell. Since I have it highlighted, I want the bottom part to be black, and that marks the start of my day. So I would kind of like this to be at the middle of this 12, so I might highlight both of these cells and then go up here to my Home tab and click on Merge and Center, and then maybe I want it to be centered like that, and that is where my 12 a.m. timeline starts. So the other thing that I need to have is basically 15-minute segments here. So what I can do is use line hierarchy. So again, I'll highlight all of these. So this is the first 15 minutes, will be like 12:15 a.m., 12:30 a.m., 12:45. So right click here, go to Format Cells, and I'm going to make this maybe a gray color. Get the middle and the bottom. So that denotes my 15-minute segments, and then here I have basically 1 a.m. occurring. So this will be the similar color as my 12 a.m. So in here, again, I need to merge these cells together. And I'll make this 01:00 A.M. So it looks nice and consistent. I need to do this basically 11 more times until I get a full day, so I'm just going to highlight all of this and press Control C on my keyboard, and then click in this cell and press Control V. So I've got 3 of them in there, so I might highlight this again. Now I have 6. And 12. This will get the last 12 hours of the day. And the next thing I'll do is go ahead and input these numbers in here until we get all the way down to the end of the day. So it looks like I almost have this part of the calendar done. So one thing I need to do is format my vertical lines here. So I'm just going to highlight these in here. Oops, went down too far. And I'm just going to right click here and go to Format Cells, and maybe I'll use a little bit bolder line for these vertical ones. Make the calendar read just a little bit better. And one thing that might be helpful is if I can get this top area to kind of stand out a little bit. So what I might do is highlight all of this, and I'll fill it in with a gray color. And I'll need to change my font to a lighter color since the background is much darker. Maybe bold my font. And I might end up totally changing my font later, but for now this is just to help me to just get things set up. And I probably want to put something in between these as well to create a separation. So I'm going to use the same thickness but a different color. Here it stands out just a little bit more, so we have a little bit space in between here. And we'll even out the spaces between our days of the week here soon. The other thing I need to do is I need to give my calendar kind of a title. So I'm going to select all of these cells up here. I'm going to merge and center them. And I'm going to just call my calendar Fall 2013 Typical Week Calendar. Maybe I'll do something different up here too. Maybe I'll fill this in with black and make my text white so it reads a little bit better, gives it a little bit more hierarchy. Another thing that would probably really help with hierarchy is if I change the size of my text. So maybe I want this text here to be a 14 size font. And maybe I want to change the font of my whole thing. So I'm just going to click this little thing up here so that I can select everything. And I particularly like Arial Narrow. And of course you can use any font that you favor. That's just one that I like to use. And I'm also going to bold this, give it a little bit more hierarchy, so it reads just a little bit more better. And then for my Sunday through Saturday, I'm probably going to change my font size here as well. Maybe I'll make this just a little bit more smaller. I'll give it an 8 size font. And then for these guys over here on the far left side, maybe I'll change the size of that too. Maybe I'll make it also an 8 size font. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I know that this is going to get fairly large, or fairly long I should say. I want it to fit on an 11 by 17 size sheet of paper. So the next thing I want to be concerned about is the spacing between here. So I'm going to select all of these. And then I'm going to press the Shift key on my keyboard before I start dragging this. That way I'll do them all consistently at the same time. And maybe I want this to be spaced at 10. There we go. And it should evenly space them all at 10. And I probably want these labels here to be on center as well, so that reads just a little bit better. And maybe I'll do the same thing with this one. I'll center it as well. So I'm pretty close to being done, and most people would probably say at this point that they're done, but one thing that you need to do is a print preview. So I'm going to go here to File, and I'm going to go to Print, and I'm going to print this as a PDF. And I'm going to print this as onto an 11 by 17 size sheet of paper. So here where it says letter, I'm going to choose 17 by 11, and probably need to change the orientation to landscape. There we go. It says no scaling, but I'm going to select fit on one sheet. And it should print it as a PDF, so I'm going to go ahead and click print. Just want to see what this looks like thus far. I'm just going to save it to some temporary location. I'll save it to my desktop, so I'll delete it later. And we can begin to see some of the problems that our sheet has. Like maybe there's a bit too much space in between here. We have a little gap up in between here. And it probably would be kind of visually nice if this whole thing was framed with a bolder black line on left and right. And I'm also beginning to feel that maybe these gray lines in between are kind of overpowering. Maybe those could be pushed back more. And if you go down here at the bottom, yeah, this could probably all be framed just a little bit better. So let's try that. So let's start with this thing up here. I'm going to right click here, and we notice there's a little notch here. And there's a little notch because we have our graph kind of start here. So maybe we just start with the outline of the whole thing. Just going to highlight the whole thing here. I'm going to come all the way down here. I'm going to go to Format Cells, and maybe I'll choose this very bold one and just enclose the whole thing. And that gets kind of rid of that gap a little bit. And maybe for visual reasons, I don't want it to go all the way out to this side over here. So what I'll probably do is highlight this top part and Format Cells and unbold those. And on my right one, I probably just need to choose the same color. Well, for now I'll just leave it as is. This one here, I need to change the color to match the color of this bar up here, and I made it that color. Click, and that way it should change it. It's not the right line thickness. There we go. And that way that edge kind of matches up a little bit better. And then over here on the left side, kind of decided, well, maybe I don't really need something there. Just going to highlight this. Maybe I'll just click this far left one here. Format cells. I'll just remove the thing on the left. We just don't really need it. And then maybe here, I'll get rid of it here too. So one thing I need to do is I need to fix this gray line here because it's kind of overpowering. We've decided that these gray lines in between are just really conflicting with this other line that we have. So I'm just going to highlight all of these. Go to Format Cell, and maybe we'll choose this middle line here and click the middle, this one here, and make it that thickness, and click that middle one. Maybe it pulls it back a little bit better. And I'm also beginning to feel maybe on this right side, I don't want it to be such a thick line that it is, because it's also kind of distracting. I'm going to highlight all of this. Maybe it's best to leave it at that weight instead, that thickness. Looks a little bit better. May have to do more tweaking later, we'll see. Which means we also have to change it here. Because right now it's really hard to tell what it is. I might change it to automatic. Okay, it's already set that way. Choose this. That brings it smaller. Need to do the same thing for this top part. And that way it lines up better. And one thing that I probably need to do with this column here is the same thing that I did across here, is make this all a consistent distance from here to this edge here. So what I might do is go ahead and just merge these cells as well, the cells that are in between these little time things here. So I'll just go ahead and go through and do those. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these since I already merged and centered the ones in between. And then again press my shift key and try to adjust one. And maybe I want one to be around, I don't know, 6. Maybe let's just try 6, see what we get. That looks a little bit better. I still need to change the line here, so what I'll do is I'm going to zoom in since now it's much smaller. Zoom in to 200. I'm going to grab these here because this is the way that I want it. Press Ctrl C and just paste it through. And then probably for our bottom one here, what I'll do is I'll just grab this bottom thing here, Control C, do Control V, and escape to get rid of that dash line, and fix the line weight of this bottom one. There, it looks a little bit better. Probably don't need such a big space in between here. And I could probably bring that much closer. There we go. It's starting to look a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and do another zoom to 100. Just see what that looks like overall. Okay, I'm going to do another print preview just to see how this came out. And I'll probably just save it on top of the other one, but I'll need to close it first. And then click Save. Yes, I do want to replace it. It's looking a little bit better. Of course, Acrobat can't print these line thicknesses very well. And it may be that we'll just take out the in-between marks, but for now we'll just leave them in there. And then down here we have our little tab. It says Sheet 1. So one thing I might want to do is rename this because I'm going to have multiple sheets. I'm going to click rename, and I'm just going to call this calendar. And if you want, you can give it a color. So I might give it a tab color. Maybe I'll give it a tab color of red. I think I'm pretty much done with this part since my Acrobat printout looked pretty okay. I'm just going to go ahead and go up here to File. I'll do Save As. And I'm going to browse out again. And I'm going to add that 2 in here. And click Save. And get ready for the next step. The next part of the assignment involves creating blocks illustrating how you will spend your time in this generic typical week. The calendar must illustrate the following in an aesthetic way. How many hours of sleep? And we need about 6 to 8 hours daily, unless you're one of those special people that only need 3 to 4. We need to kind of program in some eating, some exercise, personal hygiene, commute time, credit hours that were enrolled. Sometimes we call those in-class or contact hours. And we also need to include study hours, and this is outside of class study time. So for every credit hour that you're enrolled, you're supposedly spend 3 credit hours outside of class a week studying. So for example, if you're enrolled in a 5 credit hour class, you're supposed to spend 15 hours a week studying for that class because 5 times 3 is 15. The special exception is TechMod because we complete all of the assignments during class. The only thing you have to do outside of class is watch some videos or maybe read some books that your instructors might assign. And then we also want to program in any other priorities that are important to you. Some of you may have families or religious activities that you participate in. So I've already saved my calendar as version 2, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in at 200%, so I'm as close as I can be, and this is pretty close. And I'm going to go ahead and draw in my first block. So I'm going to go over here where it says Insert, and I'm going to be looking for my shapes. And I'm just going to start with this first one here. It's called a rectangle. And I'm not too concerned how well it fits inside this box. What I'm trying to do right now is just make a template rectangle. And you can make your rectangle look pretty much any way that you want. So for mine, I'm going to right click on this and go to Format Shape. And I want to format my fill. So I do want a solid fill, but I want the color to be a little bit different. I want it to be green, maybe not so dark. Go down a notch. And then I kind of want my outline color to be a little bit bolder than what it is, because it's kind of hard to tell when this box ends and maybe when the next one is going to begin. So maybe I'll make it black for now. So let's just see what that looks like if I click off. And that looks pretty decent. Maybe that black outer line could be a little bit more thicker than what it is. So let's change the thickness of that. And over here on the right side where it says Format Shape, these are all the settings that allows you to format that shape. So all I have to do is just look through here and try to find, here we go, there's the width. So let's try 1.5 or maybe 2. Looks like 2 reads a little bit better. I can find where this block definitely occurs. So inside here I need to have some text. So what I'm going to do is where it says text box, so I'm still in my drawing tools and format. I'm going to click on text box. I'm going to click inside of here and I'm going to type in LAR 510. So this is definitely a class that I have. So right now I'm working on is my coursework because these are kind of my obligations. This is a place that I need to be. So I'm going to click in here. I'm going to go to home and look at some other options I might have. Maybe I can center that. Maybe center it this way as well. So I'm going to center it vertically and I'm going to center it horizontally. And maybe I'll also change the font. So maybe I want the font to be consistent. So I'll use my Arial Narrow again. And maybe I'll change the size of my font as well. Maybe I'll make it a 9. I can get more info to fit. And maybe in here I might want to include, where the class is meeting at, what location, because that kind of bears on my time management. So this is in Seton Hall, 111. This helps you to program how long it's going to take you to get from one place to the next. So what I'm going to do now is try to get it sized up in this direction the way that I want it. I'm not too concerned about the vertical because it'll change. And I need to locate when this class meets. And this class meets twice a week. So one of them is on Monday at 5:30. So I'm just going to drag this down. Looks like it ends at 7:30 about. So right about there. And it starts at 5:30, so I'm just going to drag this down. So there's my first class that I have in here. And as you can see, this calendar in the background is kind of static. It's not really changing, and I can recycle it every semester. And these boxes are totally movable and adjustable. So next semester, when I have a new set of classes, I just go in here and change the names and move them around. So there's another one of these on Friday. And the Friday one meets at, looks like 8:30. Pretty early. And if I click here, I can tell this is about the 8:30 line, because this is the middle part. So if I click in here and just press Control V, so what I did was I copied this and now I just paste this. I don't have to do any special formatting. So some other little just aesthetic things I might want to do is maybe make this stand out as a room location by putting little brackets on the side. Maybe I'll put a space in between here so it reads a little bit better. Of course, it's not really grammar correct, but this is more for visual representation of what our calendar is like. So I have more classes. I also have, let's see, I have LAR 5:30, and that one occurs on, I actually have this programmed in on Sunday, so I need to move this over to Monday. By having these little blocks, they're totally movable. So I have something going on Thursday. So what I did was I select it, press Control C, and then Control V to copy and paste. And this one actually starts much earlier. And it goes for much longer. It goes down to 11. And all I have to do is go in here and change that to 5:30. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put in my other courses in here, pretty much doing the same procedure, copy and paste. You can make each class a different color, or make it the same color. You can use any color palette that you want. Just create something that's, easily readable. This is my final calendar after I've programmed in all of my blocks.